Tonight, you'll probably sleep on something soft. A mattress, a pillow, maybe even under a blanket. It feels so normal that you've probably never questioned it. But here's something strange. For more than 99% of human history, none of those things existed. No beds, no bedrooms, no memory foam, not even a pillow. And yet, your ancestors still had to fall asleep every single night. But how? Did they simply lie on the cold ground? Did they sleep inside caves? Did they curl up in trees like other animals? Or did they have a completely different way of sleeping that we've almost forgotten? The answer is far more fascinating than it seems. Because before humans had beds, sleep wasn't just about getting comfortable. It was about staying alive. The moment your eyes closed, you became vulnerable. A predator could be nearby. Insects could spread disease. The cold could slowly drain your body heat. Even choosing the wrong place to sleep could mean you never woke up again. So if sleeping was that dangerous, how did our ancestors survive for tens of thousands of years without the one thing most of us can't imagine living without today? The answer begins in a world that looked nothing like the one we know. A world where finding a place to sleep was one of the most important decisions a human could make. To understand how humans slept before beds, you first have to forget the world you know today. There were no houses, no locked doors, no streetlights, no police, no hospitals. For our ancestors, the earth was beautiful, but unforgiving. Dense forests stretched for miles. Open grasslands offered little protection. Mountains, rivers, and caves were home not only to humans, but also to predators far stronger and faster than they were. As night fell, the world changed. The darkness became an advantage for creatures that hunted after sunset. Lions, hyenas, leopards, wolves. Many of them relied on the cover of night to find their next meal. For an early human, falling asleep wasn't simply the end of the day. It meant becoming completely defenseless for hours. But wild animals weren't the only danger. Cold temperatures could slowly steal body heat. Heavy rain could soak the ground. Insects and parasites waited in tall grass and damp soil. Even a place that looked safe during the day could become deadly after sunset. That's why choosing where to sleep wasn't a matter of comfort. It was a matter of survival. Every evening, our ancestors had to make a decision that could determine whether they would see another sunrise. And that raises an even bigger question. If the ground was so dangerous, where did they actually sleep? The simplest answer is, wherever they could survive the night. Despite what many people imagine, early humans didn't just collapse onto bare rock every evening. Over thousands of years, they learned something that seems obvious today. The place you sleep can determine whether you live or die. Whenever possible, they searched for natural shelters. Caves protected them from wind and rain. Rock overhangs offered cover without trapping them completely. In forests, thick layers of leaves, grass, and branches could be gathered to create a softer, warmer surface than the cold ground. In some regions, animal skins were spread over these natural beds, adding insulation against freezing nights. These weren't beds as we know them, but they were carefully prepared sleeping places. In fact, archaeologists have uncovered evidence that humans were making simple plant-based bedding hundreds of thousands of years ago. They weren't just lying down. They were already thinking about warmth, comfort, and protection. That discovery changes the way we imagine our ancestors. They weren't simply surviving. They were solving problems. But even the best sleeping place had a hidden weakness. Because the greatest danger wasn't always the animals you could see. Sometimes, it was the tiny creatures you couldn't. Large predators may have been the most obvious threat, but they weren't the enemy our ancestors encountered most often. The real battle usually happened much closer. Fleas, ticks, mosquitoes, lice. Tiny creatures that could bite, spread disease, and turn a single night's rest into days of misery. Sleeping directly on damp ground also brought another problem. Moisture quickly pulled heat away from the body, making cold nights even more dangerous. Over time, damp sleeping areas could increase the risk of illness and infection, especially if someone already had cuts or injuries. So early humans became surprisingly clever. Instead of sleeping just anywhere, they began choosing places that reduced these risks. Dry ground was always better than wet soil. Fresh layers of grass and leaves could be replaced when they became dirty or infested. And one discovery made an enormous difference: fire. At first, fire was simply a source of warmth and light, but it offered something just as valuable: protection. The glow of a campfire discouraged many animals from coming too close, while its smoke helped drive away countless biting insects. Sleeping near a fire wasn't perfectly safe, but it made the night far more survivable than sleeping alone in complete darkness. For the first time, humans weren't just enduring the night, they were beginning to control it. And that single change transformed sleep forever. Because once people gathered around a fire, they discovered something even more powerful than warmth. That discovery wasn't a softer place to sleep. It was each other. Long before cities, walls, or even proper homes existed, humans rarely faced the night alone. As darkness settled, families and small groups gathered around the warmth of a fire, sleeping close together. It wasn't simply for comfort. It was one of the smartest survival strategies our species ever developed. A lone person was vulnerable. A group was much harder to surprise. If an unfamiliar sound echoed through the night, someone was more likely to wake up. If danger approached, there were more eyes, more ears, and more people ready to react. Sharing body heat also made a remarkable difference. On freezing nights, sleeping close together helped everyone stay warmer, while using less energy to keep their bodies alive. In many ways, the people beside you became just as important as the fire itself. Over time, humans also became more selective about where they rested. They cleared away sharp stones. They replaced old grass with fresh bedding. They reused the safest sleeping spots whenever possible. Without realizing it, they were laying the foundation for something we now take for granted: the idea that where you sleep should be clean, safe, and comfortable. But even after humans learned all these lessons, they still weren't sleeping in what we would recognize as a bed. That transformation would take thousands more years, and it would completely change the way people lived. For thousands of generations, sleeping on the ground was simply a part of life. But as humans began building permanent homes, something slowly changed. People discovered that raising themselves off the ground made a huge difference. Simple platforms made from wood, woven reeds, or branches helped keep away dampness, insects, and small animals. These weren't luxurious beds. They were practical solutions to everyday problems. Over time, those simple platforms evolved into the beds we know today. Soft bedding replaced piles of grass. Animal skins gave way to woven fabrics and mattresses. What began as a tool for survival gradually became a symbol of comfort. But here's what's truly remarkable. Although our beds have changed beyond recognition, our bodies haven't. The brain that helps you fall asleep tonight is almost the same one your ancestors relied on tens of thousands of years ago. It still responds to darkness. It still reacts to sudden sounds. It still follows biological rhythms shaped long before bedrooms, electricity, or memory foam ever existed. Perhaps that's why, despite having the most comfortable beds in human history, millions of people still struggle to get a good night's sleep. Maybe sleep was never just about the bed. Maybe it has always been about feeling safe. For almost all of human history, our ancestors fell asleep under the stars, beside a fire, surrounded by the people they trusted most. Today, we lock our doors, turn off the lights, and climb into incredibly comfortable beds. Yet the ancient brain inside us is still the same. So the next time you lie down to sleep, remember, your bed is one of humanity's newest inventions. But the instinct to seek safety before closing your eyes is one of its oldest. And that leaves one fascinating question. If you had to spend just one night exactly as your ancestors did, without a bed, without electricity, and surrounded only by nature, do you think you'd get any sleep at all? Let me know in the comments.